All right, how's everyone doing? Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA show, Mastering Self-Confidence. So what I want to get into today is something that I don't even know how to word it yet. I don't even know the title to this podcast, but I think it's basically related to COVID exposing everyone for who they truly are. Or I might consider naming it, COVID was like my own personal rehab. And I don't want people to get confused too, like I had a drug or an alcohol or a gambling addiction or whatever, and I had to go to rehab. But what I learned throughout COVID was a lot of things about myself, and I think I learned a lot of things about others as well. And the one thing I'll say about myself when a lot of us, you get let go from work, you might have gotten furloughed, you may have had your hours cut back. I don't know what you went through. But I think a lot of us had more time than we've had throughout our life. We also weren't able to travel, and a lot of us, as you know, we even had to be, quarantined. And I think a lot of times, a lot of people would talk a lot of shit saying if I had time to do whatever I wanted to do, I would get all these things accomplished. I just don't have the time because I'm always working. I always have the kids. I always have this or that. But I think what happened with a lot of people is they were given a substantial amount of time to start something or do something, and they didn't do shit. And, when I remember when this hit me, I looked at it like a rehab and said, you know what, I've been traveling for like a lot in the last decade. And I said, you know what, I'm, for the first time in a long time, going to have time to truly have time to think and create and read and upload content, create content now, not always in a rush, not always with a distraction, not always being exhausted, not, all these different types of things, because I was always creating things on the go, on the fly kind of. And a lot of times that worked really well. And then other times I think it may, it suffered other things that I wanted to do, which, work comes first a lot of times. We all know that. We got to make a living. But even with fitness, I was very fortunate. They didn't close down my hotel. So that's back to traveling. My complex's workout center. So that was open for me, which was great, and all the gyms were closed. But, you would think not having all the equipment that I'm used to having, and also I'm always used to going to different style gyms, it was interesting now just to go to one gym, say, for a couple months. Which was that until my gym opened up. And I tried out all these different types of workouts. I even went running, and I'd go online and try all these different types of things, which I'm always experimenting, but I never really experimented on these type of things, which was quite interesting. So, but back to rehab or whatever you want to say, I think what I realized about myself more than anything is I had a lot of time to think. Okay, I also had a lot of time to rest. I also had a lot of time to reach out to others where sometimes I think I would come up with excuses. I was too busy. And also being available for others. I was, no one can bullshit each other and pretend like, oh, I'm too busy to do this, that, or whatever the case may be. And for one, I wanted to always do a podcast or a radio show where I get to interview some of the most interesting people I knew. And I was able to do that for a couple months. And after doing that, I loved doing it, but I realized that right now is something I don't want to keep doing. And it wasn't because of the people I was interviewing. It was just because it became too daunting and too time-consuming. And what was interesting regarding my podcast, my numbers plummeted when I changed the platform up. And I thought if I went that way, they would actually skyrocket or do much better. You never know. If I would have stuck with it, maybe things would have changed, but I like going back to this platform where I kind of go on these little rants. That doesn't mean I'm still not doing podcasts on video or with other people. But I learned that about myself. And if I never would have went through, the pandemic, I think that would have been always something that I wanted to do, and I always would have been like, oh, this is maybe why the reason my podcast never did the numbers they did was because I never got to do exactly what I wanted to do. In this case, I did do what I want to do, and it wasn't that successful. Just the truth. I also was able to create content for my YouTube channel where I can think about it clearly what I wanted to do. And I wasn't distracted with maybe all the other things regarding my YouTube channel. So a lot of times I travel and I'd be going in different restaurants, bars. I shouldn't say bars, but yeah, restaurants/bars, coffee houses, different gyms, and just different distractions, doing videos on them, which I liked. But in this case, I was just able to really sit down in my backyard or even in a gym and talk about things that I've always wanted people to learn, I guess you could say. And as time went on, back to like a rehab thing, minus all the other things, like the bad part of it, I was able to just think clearly. I was in Florida, so I'd go to a pool. I can't say it was an extended vacation because I live in Florida. And I always kind of feel like when you live in a place like Florida, especially Orlando, it always kind of feels like a vacation. But it did feel more almost like I was retired, which sounds kind of weird. I miss traveling, don't get me wrong, and I miss work. I like working. But this made me, too, realize that I'm getting older and that I was able to, for instance, be home more to see my kids. I was able to see friends, and I was actually available because I was somebody who always kind of made it sound like everybody else wasn't available when the reality was I wasn't. And I really realized that with my podcast because when I originally set it up, it was to interview people like I wanted to, but I was always too busy to do it. And then when I could do it, I was either too tired, it was either too early in the morning, too late at night, whatever the case may be. I was really, for the first time in a long time, I just had time to learn about myself, figure out who I am. I'm always talking about self-awareness, but through the pandemic, if I'm going to just say anything, if you reflect back on it, what did you really get out of it? Like I said, I know there's been a lot of horrificness too. Like people have lost loved ones, people have gotten sick, people have lost their homes, and all this negative stuff. I get it. It's harsh. I don't know what else to say. But on the other end, what else? No matter what you go through in your life, you've got to learn things about who you are, about others, your behavior. Is what you're doing really working for you? Because I don't think a lot of us do that. And through this, I was really able to just kind of sit back and take time to figure things out. It also gave me clarity to say, hey, maybe I do want to try this in the future. Things that I never thought I would do, or maybe things that I may or may not want to accomplish. So anyways, I just thought I would do a quick podcast on this because, if you're still somebody going through the pandemic, you still don't have a job, or you're still having, use the time wisely. And I know you may be like, shut the hell up. But if you're really just sitting around watching a ton of television, for instance, or you're just, if you got heavier, if you got way more out of shape, or you feel shittier, the only thing I could say regarding that is try from here on out to make the most out of every day in every situation. And through the pandemic, that really was something that I learned about myself was, I always talk about if your back's against the wall in life, that's truly who you are. And if you can come out of this, which I think a lot of people are going to obviously come out of this, no matter what, you have to survive through this. I talk about it on my YouTube channels and my podcast. You're going nowhere, most likely. You can't jump out of someone else's body. Now, unless you pass away, you're in this situation. Really, if you weren't happy during the pandemic, okay, were you really that happy before it? I don't think a lot of people were. I think they were bullshitting themselves. I think they were busy and pretending they were happier. Now, I'm not saying losing your job and losing all your shit. Don't get me wrong. If you lost your job and you're losing tons of your income, of course you're going to be unhappy. I'm not saying that. I'm talking kind of from a personal level, more or less than from a financial sometimes, because I think a lot of people are busy and they were really busy bullshitting themselves instead of taking an honest approach and saying, wow, what I was doing before and the life that I was leading, was it the one I kind of want to keep leading? And for some people it is. For some people it may not be. But please take this time to figure out if it wasn't, what do you want to do? Like, really, it sounds stupid, but I go through this myself a lot of times because I haven't been working besides my own stuff. What do I want to do? What do I want to get accomplished? And there's no excuse because I have time to really think about this and put a plan together. So I'm going to wrap it up there, but please don't sell yourself short. I mean, I talk about that all the time. A lot of people don't realize all the knowledge they have and all the potential. And again, during a pandemic, having all this time, you can start realizing that you have a lot more maybe in the tank than you thought before, and you can be something that you may have always wanted to be. And now's the opportunity to maybe start heading that way. So if you want, you could just check out my YouTube channel, Rich Celenza. My website's richcelenza.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And please leave a comment or let me know how you're doing. I'm going to wrap it up there. Take care.